men's health is complicated. You know, we're taught that men are easy because we don't give birth. Actually, that's not true. The difference between andropause and menopause is more abrupt. Now, men actually, I think, I forget the statistic, I think it's 3 or 4 times more likely to commit suicide after a divorce than women. So we lose about 1% of testosterone every year. So it's more like a gradual decline. And awareness is also not great because men are taught to just man up. I think the challenge is always going to be, so what? See, just because you can measure it doesn't mean you should. You know, I can still toss a ball with my son. Okay, he's now getting a bit stronger than me. Okay, I'm not saying I'm a male model, but I look okay for 52. So I think it seems to be working.
Curiosity is the key to the imagination.
Mike Helfman Podcast, let's do this!
Dream the impossible dream. Welcome to Mike Helfman's Curiosity Podcast.
Okay, welcome, Ramesh Rajentheran. Thank you for coming. He's a doctor, businessman, owner of healthcare clinics. Super excited to have him here because he owns men's healthcare clinics, and I'm a man, and I like my health, and I want to learn more about how we can take care of it, especially here in Asia. I feel like, you know, that's why I got in touch with you, because you know, I was having trouble finding men's healthcare clinics, and we came upon you, and I had a mutual friend, and we were able to finally meet. But before we get into how we met, why don't you give us and the audience a little bit of background on yourself and what qualifies you to own a healthcare clinic, basically how you got here.
So I trained as a physician in the UK, although I'm from this part of the world. First job out of med school, I was kind of helping with some breast cancer research. We published some papers, found a way to treat a particular kind of breast cancer, which was great, awesome to do when you're 25. Got into surgery in a training program. So I finished what you would call in the US as a resident in cardiothoracic surgery. I felt I really didn't want to be a doctor for the next 40 years. Medicine, almost by definition, the older you get, the more narrow it becomes. You subspecialize, and you subspecialize in your subspecialty. For me, I'm a pretty broad person, and I just thought the older I get, the more broad I want to be, the more interests I want to have. So it was kind of never going to be a career for me.
Yeah.
I think I'm not cut out for it. So before I got too old, I decided to kind of call time on it. I went to business school, did an MBA at London Business School, which again in 2002 is unusual. People in my generation didn't do that. The younger guys now, I think, my business partner in the clinic, for example, has an MBA.
I think now you almost have to do it. With AI, it's like the more general of broad spectrum you have, the better, right?
Yeah, I mean, my business partner is 12 years younger than me, and he has an MBA. And in his cohort, it's quite common. Right? But, you know, I just took a leap of faith, took on some debt, borrowed money, and went to business school.
Yeah, I'd say it's a major risk, right? It's like you just spent a lot of time and money becoming a doctor. Fuck this, I'm going to be a businessman.
Yeah, and you know, I think to give context as well, like as scary as the world seems now, you got to bear in mind, like in 2001, the tech bubble burst, right? Like Wall Street was shut, essentially as a career choice, which was a major hirer of MBAs. So you take on debt not knowing if you're going to get a job, right? And it was a very tough environment actually to get a job. It wasn't easy. I think I lucked out with some help from friends, and right place, right time. I got hired at UBS as an equity research analyst to cover pharmaceutical companies, which made a lot of sense. I think I could lose less money that way.
Now it's coming together, right?
yeah, which I loved. I had a good time, and then I did sales, sold equities to hedge funds, healthcare equities to hedge funds. So everyone from SAC in New York all the way down to hedge funds in Asia, everything from Russian biotech to Swedish pharmaceuticals to hospitals in the US to HMOs. So everything. It was a good way of learning about all of healthcare. Helped run a trading desk as well. So I helped run a prop trading book of about $1 billion. At Morgan Stanley, we invested in everything across the world that's to do with healthcare.
All healthcare.
Which is a lot of fun and a great way to make money till it wasn't a great way to make money because GFC happened. And so that's, a major life-changing event, right?
For those of you that don't know, GFC is the global financial
Yes,
crisis.
explosive for younger folk. In '08, we thought money was going to end, right? So again, as bad as you think Trump tariffs are now, there was a time we thought money was going to come to an end. Like, it was going to go back to the barter system almost. So banks laid off. I got laid off too. They fired everyone above my grade. I was going to go join a consulting firm called McKinsey. But then I got a call from Barclays, kind of head of Barclays, who was building out in London. They just acquired Lehman. So he said, do you want to come and help start equities? Thought, why not? Never done a startup. So started that. It was a lot of fun. Then got a call, from somebody who worked for Kwek Leng Chan here in Malaysia. And he said, come back to Asia. I thought that was a good idea.
Right.
I'd always wanted to move back to Asia because my entire career till that point had been the UK, brief stint in New York, and then back to the UK. I felt like Asia was the future.
Definitely. I feel like at that time, Asia also got less affected than Europe and the West from the GFC.
Yes,
I mean, and particularly the healthcare sector.
Yes.
I thought the healthcare sector, because I was deep in the economic studies at that time, the healthcare sector almost seemed recession-proof, like particularly hospitals.
Yes.
Yes. So it's very, makes sense.
Yes.
Makes sense making the move back.
Yeah, and I just felt, at some point, if you wanted a family, it's just a better place to raise kids, quite frankly. So I said, why not? So I came back to Asia and then moved back to banking. Went to Hong Kong.
And you were the CIO for a minute at
I helped
right?
run some of the firm's money, and then I went to Hong Kong back to Barclays actually. To help build a new practice that I had an idea that there would be a lot of healthcare bankers in Asia, and I wanted to do mergers and acquisitions. So I built that team out, built a practice. We created a really very lucrative business for Barclays, one of the biggest sectors. I had a lot of fun doing deals like M&A. So I'm still the only banker I know who's done research, sales, trading, and M&A. It's very unusual. Usually you do one thing.
And he's also a doctor.
That was by the by. None of this was planned. Hong Kong was fun, but then personal circumstances changed. I moved to Singapore after my divorce to be nearer my son, because my wife had taken my son back to Singapore. And so I moved back. And then in 2015, I was trying to acquire a company called Fullerton Health. I was working with some US buyers. But they convinced me that, look, we're not going to sell. We want an IPO. We like you. Come be CFO. I thought I'd never been a CFO. I'd never actually worked in a company. So I'd done like medicine, banking, in a conglomerate, but not really as an operational person. Thought, why not have a go, see whether I can really do it. It's one thing to talk about companies. It's another thing to run one. So I became CFO of Fullerton. Had a very high-profile IPO failure in 2008. Well documented as to why we failed. But we managed to raise $650 million, acquired 22 companies in 2.5 years. So I think it's still probably one of the largest healthcare roll-ups ever done at least in this part of the world. We went from 800 to 5,000 people in 2.5 years.
And these were all smaller clinics?
Everything from 2-doctor clinics all the way up to Philippines' second largest health insurance company.
Okay, so it was the whole spectrum that you were dealing with, not just clinics, but the whole infrastructure. So you must have a really good idea of the way that the global, or at least the Asian medical infrastructure works.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, please.
No.
Because we're gonna go to that later.
We can go there too.
Yeah.
Because that's quite an interesting topic as well. But yeah, so that went well. I mean, we grew the business.
Okay.
I was then tasked with leading a New York IPO for us. So that became my kind of full-time role. And then unfortunately, my kid, who was then 5.5, who was living with my ex-wife in Singapore. So I married somebody I knew since high school.
Okay.
Right? So my best friend for 20 odd years. Unfortunately, she passed away.
And this was your current wife?
Yeah. So this was before my current wife.
Excuse me.
My first wife.
At the time?
Yeah, at the time. Yeah.
Right.
And so when she passed, he came to live with me.
Right.
And obviously, because she died really suddenly, it's not like she had cancer and she had a long runway. You know, one day she was here, the next day she.
That's very
literally
shocking.
wasn't.
Yeah.
And it was entirely preventable, but we can come back to that.
Did that have something to do with? Okay.
Yeah, it did actually.
With the medical industry. Okay.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, I mean, she died because of a combination of issues. You know, she, you know, a newly independent woman. When she got a bit sick, she didn't know where to go because even though you're privately insured, in fact, globally, even if you're privately insured, nobody ever tells you which doctor is the right doctor for you to go and see. You know, and she saw 4 GPs, none of whom had picked up how sick she was getting. 4th GP said, I don't know what's going on, but you better go to the hospital. But then her health insurer then messed up. And she took too long to issue a letter of guarantee for the hospital, and she ended up going to a public hospital.
And this is in Singapore?
In Singapore. And then that public hospital, again, at no point did she call her ex-husband.
Right.
Which is it's very sad, because obviously we had at Fullerton 2,000 doctors.
Right.
Ironic in a way, but she ended up in the wrong hospital, and then they accidentally discontinued an antibiotic on a drip. Basically, when the bag ran out, they didn't put another one.
Really?
And that's how you go from infection under control to being septic, which is bacteria in the bloodstream. So I ended up taking my son to say goodbye to his mom on a ventilator.
Oh,
which is not something that anyone prepares you for.
No.
So I quit my job 2 days after that.
Wow.
Unfortunately, that had some impact on the company, you know, in terms of the IPO, obviously, because I was running it. But you know, my son came first. I had no choice. So I looked after my son for a bit. I just stay-home dad. I'm not sure how successful I was, but at least it was okay. And then I decided, you know, I want to try and fix the reason she died. You know, at least have a go, at least have a try.
Because it sounds like negligence, if you ask me.
And I just thought everything was preventable. Everything, that chain of events was preventable. The technology to do that already existed. And I kind of knew how it worked. I also knew I could raise money because I'm connected. And so I thought, why don't I try to fix it? So one of my independent directors kind of tipped me over, because he kind of said, look, you know, if you can't fix it, who can? So you're going to tell your son you sued a bunch of doctors, or you're going to tell your son you try to fix the problem? So I said, okay, I'll try. So we raised a bunch of money. Unfortunately, COVID just happened just after we incorporated. So timing was terrible, but we didn't know, obviously. And yeah, so then the whole series of events, we raised money, became a VC-backed company, got some profile, built really cool technology, and then realized about a year ago that actually, a bit less than that, maybe about 9 months ago, that actually it was going to be very hard with long sales cycles, for this to continue being a VC-backed company. So we decided to actually merge with a services company, and so they deliver the technology as a service. So,
and what technology are we talking about?
So we built technology to automate health insurance, essentially to navigate members to where they should go, which didn't happen with my ex-wife.
Right.
And then to automate things like the issuance of letters of guarantee, so you can just rock up to a hospital straight away, right?
Okay.
Or taking humans out of the process. It was a machine learning / AI company. So it's great, because I got to learn about machine learning and AI. Not many.
Quite early on.
Very early on.
Yeah.
Most 51-year-olds don't know how to build one. I do. And it was fun. I'm not a tech person, but I learned quite a lot along the way. So we're actually in the process of merging that company now, so I can't talk too much about it, but...
well, rather than talk about that, can you talk about kind of the problem that led to you creating this in terms of the infrastructure within the healthcare industry of the insurance companies and the hospitals and the pharmaceutical companies, and how it's all so convoluted and very difficult for a patient or a consumer to kind of navigate?
Yeah, I think there's a few real issues there. One is, there's a lot of conflicts of interest in healthcare. Fundamentally, the people who are paying for healthcare don't necessarily provide the healthcare. So one side's cost is another side's revenue. Right. Which means... Meaning
the insurance companies are paying the doctors.
To go down, right? And the doctors obviously want cost to go up in terms of, because they have to make rent, right? So there's a lot of perverse consequences going on. So that's issue number one, right? Which has led in some markets like the US to have institutions like Kaiser Permanente, where the insurer owns the clinics, owns the hospital, owns the whole ecosystem.
Jeez.
And that's good and bad. Okay, the bad is it potentially gives them so much market power. So in the state of California, effectively you can control healthcare with one institution. The flip side of that is you can argue it delivers better care because interests are aligned, right? If you want to roll out preventative healthcare, well, the insurer is aligned with the doctor. You can pay the doctor for prevention, right? Whereas in a lot of markets like Southeast Asia, it's very hard to do that because the guys who own the clinics are not the guys who are the insurer.
Right.
So it's good and bad.
I'm just thinking, because you hear about, right, how does it work? What are the advantages in terms of, because sometimes you have a doctor who pushes a patient into surgery unnecessarily because they want to raise the revenues, right? Yes. So maybe it's good when you have an insurer who's kind of checking that doctor, right? But then on the other hand, you might have the reverse scenario where a patient might in fact need surgery, but it's not 100% required, and the insurer will say, no, we don't think you need it, when in fact, the best thing might be for the patient to get a surgery or something. So there's kind of a flip side to both ends of that coin, isn't there?
Yes, there is. And I think to complicate matters even further, quite often the people paying the insurance premium is not the patient, right? It can be the employer, which then creates a whole set of problems because to the patient, I'm like, you don't care how much this thing costs because it's not your problem, right? But at the same time, the insurer has to care. And the major issue, and this is why I actually wanted to come to actually fix health insurance, is I think, I've been doing healthcare for 25 years. I think for the next however long I have a career, I just felt like the big theme that somebody needs to solve for is healthcare financing and healthcare brands. So we'll come back to the brands because we can talk about the men's health thing, right? Because that's the brand part. The insurance thing is, I think we need to fix healthcare financing because the reality is, as we get older, who's going to pay for all this? Even in Singapore, where we have more millionaires per head of population than anywhere else, the government has effectively said, in many shapes or forms, look, at some point, financing because we can't pay for everything. So most governments around the world have to encourage health insurance. But if health insurers are going to lose money, then it's a non-sustainable business. Right. So...
Well, don't you think, you don't want to end up like the US, where everything is 10 times inflated in terms of cost almost, right?
Yes.
A shot of, insulin is 10 times more in the United States than it is in Asia.
Yes.
Right, at least. I know you can go and get heart surgery in the US for $100,000, and in Malaysia it might cost 50,000 ringgit. Right? So there is a big difference.
Yeah. But in the US, I think you have another problem, which we don't really have so much in Asia, which is lobbying. Right? There's no structural reason why drug prices have to be higher in the US. And yes, you can pay that. You can argue that somebody has to pay for R&D. But in any pharmaceutical company, R&D is 14% of revenue. It's a teens thing. They spend twice as much more money on a sales force than they do spend on R&D.
So it's pure capitalism, really.
Yeah, so there's no real rational argument. The reason why you can't change the system in the US is because both Democrats and Republicans take the same amount of money from pharmaceutical companies, which means that there's no incentive to go after this. So even Trump will have limited success. I think he knows that, unless you can take out money out of politics. So the US, I think, has a very different problem. Whereas somebody like Singapore, to some extent Malaysia, where the government is a major payer, the government has market power. They can actually keep prices under control. So here in this part of the world, really, the effort is going more on things like prevention.
Which is where we should be at in the first place. Rather than treating the symptom, we should try to be preventing anything from happening in the first place.
And they're very interesting experiments. In Singapore, I think 2.5 million people are on the same healthcare app. It's called Healthy 365.
Right.
It's a series of personalized nudges to your phone. Every individual is different, to encourage them to do different things around their health. They all wear wearables. So it's about 2.5 million people now, I think, on a wearable in Singapore.
Is that provided by the government, the wearable?
Paid for
really?
By the
Wow.
Because
I mean, I did see some interesting things about the invasion of government in healthcare with sugar content in drinks like soda and certain oils being used at hawker stalls.
Yeah.
I mean, frankly, people would say, oh, that's government in private life, but look, it's for the better,
No,
right?
it is.
So I don't see it as a bad thing.
I think government has to be almost, because at the end of the day, in any health system, most of the time the government picks up the tab when things go bad.
Yeah, because if you look at capitalism go wild within the nutritional and the healthcare center, you get America, where you have the highest obesity rates in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at pictures from the 1950s and the 1960s of people on a beach in the U.S.
Yes.
Everybody is slim and fit. You look at it now, and you know, there's blubber.
Yes.
Right? There's a lot of fat. There's a lot of diabetes. I mean, Malaysia's also fighting with the highest diabetes rate in Southeast Asia as well.
Yeah.
Because of diet. So, but you look at Singapore, they also have one of the longest health spans in the world, right?
Yeah. So the government has to play a role, because when things go bad in the private sector, patients end up in the public sector anyway. So it's in the government's best interest to actually make the population healthier. I think the challenge and the paradox is that if population is staying alive longer, then changes a lot of things. Who's going to pay for all these, etc.
True.
So I think the key emphasis now is not just growing older, it is actually growing older healthier.
Right.
And, you know, increasing productivity as you get older.
Health span.
So the government has to play a role. How far they go, I'm all for it. Like from banning certain foods, you know, slapping warning labels on everything, taxing the food industrial complex, regulating social media to help mental health. I'm all for it. Like, I think go. I'm one of those people who believes.
Hey, you do it with drugs. I mean, when I say drugs, I mean like, you know, marijuana, cocaine, methamphetamine. You do it with alcohol, you do it with tobacco, right? I mean, you should certainly, I mean, sugar is something that should probably be regulated.
Or taxed.
Right? Or taxed, so that it's expensive to a point where it's prohibitively hard to use.
Or taxed.
The other one that I think is really interesting, like you said, when it comes to mental health, is social media. Because to me, that is a drug akin to a stimulant of some sort. Because you might not be intaking it the same way, but it's still affecting your brain in ways that dopamine and serotonin are getting those hits, similar to like a cocaine or a meth.
Yes.
But it's something that we've never experienced before, right?
Yes.
It's a digital drug.
Yes.
And Australia's kind of ahead of the curve, right?
Yes.
With this 16-year-old ban.
Yeah.
So it would be good to see this kind of interventions.
I'm all for it. Like I don't think anyone under the age of 18 should have access to social media. Your brain is not fully developed yet. You know, you're firing, as you say, dopamine receptors all over the place. There's such an opportunity to influence behavior in a perverse way. I'm one of those parents who has a 12-year-old, and we made our kid watch Adolescence, the Netflix thing, which is controversial because I know most parents wouldn't want. And after 4 episodes, my kid just said, I don't want social media till I'm 20. Like, having watched that, I'm like, and I think it's real. You know, and I do think that we can regulate it. There's actually no technical reason, by the way, we can age gauge anything. There is no argument, no technical argument around it. Yeah, in China they do, right?
I mean, I've got a crazy. They do. China, they do. TikTok is definitely, the algorithm is skewed towards more educational purposes.
Yes.
China, they regulate it. I mean, not China. Australia, 16 years and below are not allowed to use it from now on.
We have digital IDs. We have an ID card. This is not America where everything is a driving license. In Singapore and Malaysia, we have ID cards.
Yeah.
Or I think Indonesia, Thailand, there's no good reason we can't do it.
Yeah, I mean, I read a scary statistic that said since the impact of social media, the average attention span of a human being has gone from like 12 seconds down to 8 seconds. Yes. And apparently, the attention span of a goldfish is 9 seconds. So this is a very scary stat. Fahad, just check if that's true or not. The average human attention span has gone down to 8 seconds. That's
incredible.
It is incredible. And I'll tell you what, my son is 7 years old. He's not on social media, obviously, but we do have YouTube on the TVs, right? And he was getting into YouTube, and what I realized, his attention span was getting shorter, right? He was, borderline ADHD, attention span is short. So what And it's not social media, but what it is it's freedom of choice to an unlimited amount of videos. So he's just clicking through, watching something, clicking through. So I banned YouTube. I took YouTube off the TVs because it comes standard on TVs now.
Yeah.
I took it off the TVs for a month. I've seen an improvement in the last month in his attention span. He's been reading more. He's been doing other things where he's not constantly clicking through. Yeah. And that's just on YouTube. So imagine you give a kid TikTok or Facebook or Instagram. It's the end of humanity. It's almost de-evolution.
Oh, and it's having a huge impact, right? Like men's attitude to women, women's attitude to women.
Women's attitude towards themselves.
Yeah, it's a major issue. Socialization. In fact, there's some studies around birth rate. It moves birth rate too, because people are just less interested in people of the opposite sex when you have this, endless entertainment cycle of dopamine hits to your brain. So I'm a big believer. My kid we still don't really have a TV downstairs. So, no screen time before he was 10. We really believe in that. I think YouTube's the harder thing to control when you're kind of 12, 13. Especially now he's in boarding school, it's a bit harder. But I think because we didn't zero screen time till he was about 10, I think his attention span's just naturally better.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer that government should play a more active role.
That's going to be an asset for kids in the future, attention span. And it's going to be because of lack of social media, most likely.
The kids who can have an attention span are going to have a huge competitive advantage over the ones who don't. They will be the ones who build things. You can't build things if all you're doing is doom scrolling. Right? You can't build the industries of the future if you're doom scrolling, right? You need an attention span.
I agree. So let's get back to the branding, the healthcare branding and the wellness. Yeah. So you had this massive tragedy happen in your life. You decided to fix that by building this insurance company, basically an automated insurance system. Right? And now you started focusing on healthcare itself.
Yes. So what actually happened was a little personal interest, right? So I was pushing 50. And I started reading about andropause. Which is not something a lot of men know about, right? We hear a lot about menopause. Right. It's better marketed in a way, right? Yeah. All men know about menopause even, because we're women who are going through it. But andropause, actually, I started reading about it, and honestly, it scared the crap out of me.
Can you explain that?
So andropause is like menopause, because as you grow older, essentially, your receptivity and your levels of sex hormones go down with time. So testosterone in men's case. The difference between andropause and menopause is more abrupt, right? Which is why women spend a lot of time preparing for it. Then there are support groups, and then when it happens, they have medication. There's an entire support system around it. Problem with andropause is it's gradual. So we lose about 1% of testosterone every year. So it's more like a gradual decline. And because of that, awareness is not great. Awareness is also not great because men are taught to just man up, right? You're not taught that this could be something you need help. So I started reading about it. And then I discovered how little I actually knew about it. And I'm like, well, I should know more than most people. And
please tell us what you know.
Exactly. And if I don't know it, all my friends don't know about it. There must be a business here somewhere. So one was, there's a real need, I think, in terms of a gap in the market. Two, I did want to try to build a brand, because that's something I'd never really done before. And I believe that brands are important in healthcare, because healthcare ultimately is a consumer product.
Now it is.
I know it's paid for by insurers, etc. But at the end of the day, they're still a consumer. It's just that we as patients don't think of ourselves as consumers. But we should. We should have the same rights as other consumers around healthcare. So I wanted to build a brand, because I felt that the problem with a lot of medical businesses and services businesses is they're very dependent on the doctor. So when the doctor leaves a practice, then the business suffers, right? But if you build a brand, then people come because of the brand. And there are very few in Asia, actually. In the US, you have Cleveland, you have Mayo. right? Columbia Presbyterian, whatever. They are actual brands.
Sloan Kettering, yeah.
We don't have many in Southeast Asia where people will go there because of the reputation. So I wanted to try that. Thirdly, I wanted to kind of build a business where it's kind of clinic that I would go to, where the doctor would actually spend 20 minutes with you, half an hour, not an 8-minute consult, right? Where they see you holistically, where you do wellness and illness in the same place.
And this is preventative care, essentially, right?
Yeah, everything from anti-aging down to sexual health, etc. It should all be done in one place.
Yeah.
I don't believe that longevity should be a separate business, because there's no point talking about healthy aging if I'm not seeing you when you're sick. It needs to be the same guy, almost. Right?
Yeah.
Quarterbacking you around. But, so I felt that there was a gap. And coincidentally, one of my now co-founder, Anthony, who is the CEO, by the way, I'm the chairman, so he runs it day to day. He had the same kind of vision, same idea. He had done a couple of men's health clinics before, but always found that the patient experience was not great. So we wanted the patient experience to be good. So we had the same vision, and so we thought, okay, let's try to do entrepreneurship a slightly different way. So there are as you know, there are a few models of entrepreneurship. There's the 0 to 1, which is the Silicon Valley thing, which is what I did with my tech company. Or the kind where you say, okay, look, it's a kind of part-time thing. We will put our own money in, we start it, we spend some time on it, we don't give up our day job, right? And then see how it goes. And if it works, then one of us does it full-time. Right. So what happened was we put in some money, we did a bit of an experiment. We started here in Malaysia, because honestly, you lose less money.
Yeah.
If it goes wrong.
It's a better testing ground.
It's a better testing ground. We did a lot of things that people who run clinics don't do. So we focus a lot on the design of the clinic.
Right.
So we wanted to try an experiment. You know, clinics have had the same look and feel for like 200 years.
Very sterile.
Very sterile.
Yeah.
You have a counter. I don't believe in counters, because I think they put a barrier between you, and I don't see why that same counter you check in should be the same counter you get your medication, which should be the same counter that you pay for stuff. There's no privacy, right? So why can't dispensing be separate behind a curtain? Why do you need a counter at all? You can do a kind of QR code check-in. You just come in. It should be discreet. So we wanted a hidden door, almost like a speakeasy vibe. You go in. You wouldn't even know it's a clinic because it's discreet. You stagger the appointments so that you don't see other people in the waiting room, because nobody likes to hang out with like 5 other sick people.
Yeah, what are you in for?
Yeah, exactly. You know, the same place you go to get your health check, you don't want to see sick people, right? Like, so I think it should be, so we stage it in such a way that maximum you see 1 or 2 other people, but it's very discreet. All these things can be done. So one of the things that you'll find in our clinics is that they are generally the prettiest clinics in every city. That's actually one of our mission statements. I want to build the prettiest clinics in every city, because I think it must make you want to come back.
Right.
So we hired a designer who'd never done a clinic. In fact, that was our criteria. He'd done a lot of our favorite bars and speakeasies, and so he designed it. So we tried an experiment. And it really worked. I mean, you know, the clinic was full in 6 months here at Bangsar. So we decided to expand to Singapore. So we opened at Mandarin Gallery in Orchard, January. And then we are opening a second, much bigger site here in KL City Centre. It's about 3,000 square feet.
And the clinics focus purely on men's health?
We only do men.
Okay.
Now, men's health is actually not in and of itself a specialty. So this is the other thing we wanted to do. We wanted to bring in this kind of, create a specialty almost. So men's health is not just sexual health. Right? That's a misconception. So it covers sexual health, yes, right? Everything from erectile dysfunction on through STDs, etc. But that's just one component, right? There's also men's health around things like andropause. How do you manage testosterone levels as you get older? Then there's anti-aging, or aging better.
Men want that? Men want to live long too.
Aesthetics. So around things like hair loss, skin. So we actually have our own products line. So we actually launching it properly this month. just created better moisturizers for men,
Okay.
better hair loss gels for men, better shampoos for men, right? Like, and so we have our own product line as well. So it's a whole spectrum from sexual all the way through to anti-aging and everything in between. We also do a fair amount of just health checks, health screenings, but very personalized health screenings.
Okay.
And then we also do quite a lot now of just, sometimes people just come in with a cough or cold because they just want a better service, you know, that somebody who will quarterback them through the medical system,
Right.
you know, bring them back.
So, you know, you mentioned a lot of really good brands from the U.S., like the Mayo Clinic and the Cleveland Clinic and, you know, Sloan Kettering, et cetera, right? And I think the reason those brands are so strong is because they've got some of the best doctors, right? So ultimately, healthcare comes down to who you're seeing, how they speak with you, how they diagnose what you have, how they come up with a plan on to make you a better person and a healthier person, right? So, I mean, for me as a patient, the most important thing is going to be the doctor. So, you know, when you're creating this brand, I'm sure that you have to focus on the doctors. So how do you guys choose your doctors? How do you know who to hire, who not to hire? You know, what's your process like that?
Yeah, so this is, again, I credit my business partner, Anthony. Yeah, he's very good at that. So Anthony is in himself a very good men's health doctor. I mean, I'd say he's the guy you want to go and see.
Okay.
Right? So,
and is he based here or in Singapore?
he goes between both.
Okay.
Because we just opened a Mandarin Gallery. Kind of take turns. I'm here this week and he's there. But you know, Anthony's, if he's the model, then everyone, you know, we have a template. So I think it helped that we have a template. And so actually the way we do is we screen the doctors. We generally hire very competent GPs who are quite broad thinking, who have an interest in men's health. We have our own treatment protocols, our own SOPs, which we teach them. There's a lot of educational stuff that goes around best practice. Typically they start out as locums in one of our clinics. Locums are kind of part-time doctors who fill in. Right? Like doctor needs to take leave, so these guys come in for a bit. So we have permanent and then we have locums. We assess the locums and then the better ones, we make them full-time. And that's our process and that's how we keep the quality going. And then we create a culture where they teach the other doctors best practice. So they're more collaborative, I think is the word for it. They all have good bedside manner. They all look healthy themselves. So,
that's important. You don't want to go.
They're slightly aspirational, right?
I've been to doctors. The guy's, you know, weighs like 300 pounds. He said, I'm like, how am I supposed to listen to this guy if he can't even take care of himself?
Exactly. So we have created that. They're good at dealing. I mean, we only do private pay. I mean, so we don't do insurance by and large. We tie up, we have relationships, but most of it's paid for out of pocket.
Is that something that you could get into in the future? Or no?
I
you
think
want to
it's
stay
unlikely
private pay?
that we will. A lot of men's health stuff isn't covered by insurance.
Really?
And that's probably a 20-year process to get it covered.
Wow.
But, you know, we will tie up with things like health screenings. Because they need to be seen somewhere, and for that, it's fine. They come in to our place. So we'll have some relationships, but, you know, it's unlikely that we're going to go down the insurance route. And also because a lot of times when you go down the insurance route, you become a mass market 8-minute consult kind of thing. Which we don't ever want to be. Our price points are actually affordable, but our average bill sizes are a bit high because we tend to see the holistic whole patient, right? So you will typically come in with more than one thing to our clinic, and so we treat all of it.
No, I think the training model I think is fascinating because ultimately, you know, you want the best doctor, right? And if you have the best doctor and then he trains other doctors to be like him, like essentially clone his mental model, then that is a fascinating plan. I mean, this is going to be a funny analogy, but like Mr. Beast, who's the best YouTuber in the world, right? He did the same thing. He said, I need to have someone stand by me for a year or two and then just create a clone of me, and that's how I can expand my business. And I think in medicine, it's obviously more important because it's medicine, you're dealing with healthcare, right? Now, what this has me thinking, and I want to ask you, my next question is Is it possible to do that with a doctor like Anthony with AI? Is it possible to kind of clone his mental model into an AI model and be able to use that?
Yeah.
Or is that something that you guys are even thinking about, utilizing AI in any of your clinics?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, somebody who built AI so 5 years ago. And I mean, I have a view on it. Like, and it's slightly controversial. I do think that I don't think we're ready for prime time yet with AI and especially patient-facing stuff.
Right.
There's a lot of things that have to be caught up. So good one, it would be malpractice.
Yeah.
You rely on the machine to tell you something, and then you tell the patient. If it's the wrong thing, who gets sued? The guy who actually built the AI or the doctor? And we haven't established a legal process around that yet. But you can imagine, right? Like sitting in front of a courtroom and saying, I recommended this because the AI said so.
Yeah, it's similar to the self-driving conundrum, right?
Correct.
Who's liable?
Who's liable? Now, you can take the other argument and say, well, if you don't use it, then isn't that not best practice? But we're not there. Because we haven't established that using AI is best practice.
And frankly, I think moving forward, clinics like yours, people are going to benefit from a human-to-human interaction, right? You want that. And if AI starts getting implemented in healthcare, it may be more on a mass market at first for the lower-end clinics, whereas the higher end clinics, you're going to see the best doctors, the best human doctors, right? And maybe they consult with AI and it's sort of a hybrid relationship, but you want somebody there talking to you, and giving you that bedside manner that you really want to interact with, right?
Because I think there's a misconception about what medicine actually is, right? Medicine's not just about diagnosing. And a lot of the hype now is around diagnosing. Oh, the machine is great at reading MRIs. The machine use ChatGPT and gets you a really accurate diagnosis. Great, but diagnosis is not all of medicine. Diagnosis is part of medicine. A lot of what good doctors do is actually sell you on the solution, right? Because I have to convince you to do what I think is right, even though every instinct in your body is telling you otherwise. So a good doctor knows how to sell a solution. Not because he wants to make money, but because it's the right thing to do for the patient.
Right, and that solution isn't necessarily a pill from a pharmaceutical company, because I feel like that's the way we've gone, at least in the United States. It's been like, America is hooked on pills. Pharmacy has got pharmaceutical companies have their tentacles entrenched in all of the hospitals. And it's almost like, these pharmaceutical companies have made the doctors drug dealers, whereas they've become so intertwined from medical school, teaching them on what medicines they can use for what disease, and it's not looking at preventative health care. It's looking at facing the symptoms.
Yeah, and look, even when you walk into a doctor's clinic, right, the doctor's doing a few things, right? He's assessing you the moment you walk in. Good doctors, I'm not saying all doctors, good doctors. They're reading your body language. They're picking up on non-verbal cues. Now, if all you're doing is stuffing a bunch of verbal cues into ChatGPT and getting a diagnosis, you're going to miss stuff. So I think there's all this non-verbal stuff, the selling of a solution, the influencing, the guiding. That cannot be done by machine yet. Will we get there over time? But it's going to take more than one mode of AI. It's not going to be done by just an LLM. It's going to be done by a combination of AI approaches. Right. And right now, AI is siloed. There's no real combination of approaches to AI in healthcare. So I think we're a long way away from being replaced by the machine. Having said that, I think there is a place for that with some of the more complicated kind of diagnostic stuff. Error reduction. I think as a business, AI has a huge role because it can automate a lot of the back-end processes.
What about radiology?
Yeah, radiology I think is different because again, a pure diagnosis based on what's in front of you.
Right.
Now, again,
scanning images.
But again, there's a whole patient history, there's patient cues. How do you explain to a patient that, okay, you have a 32% chance of this being a tumor? What does that mean to the patient, right? That needs to be done still by a human. It's one of the things why I'm a bit skeptical about things like whole body MRIs. What exactly am I going to do with knowing that I have a 14% probability that this might be a brain tumor? I'm going to change my life? How's that going to affect things like health insurance? So I think we have to be, again, careful with machines and screenings. you know. There's a whole kind of other aspect to it that we're not thinking about yet.
Yeah, I know that the company in the U.S. is getting really big, Prenuvo, with
Yes.
the full body MRIs.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, so speaking of machines, what kind of machines do you guys have in your clinic? You guys have X-ray, MRI, any CT, anything?
No, obviously we wouldn't have an MRI because again,
I know they're
you need
expensive and they're big and they're
takes up
heavy.
space
Yeah.
and you need volume. Right?
Yeah.
So we in our clinics in Singapore and now in Bangsa, we can do most of the health screening there. So everything from which is everything until an ultrasound. Right?
Okay.
Because that's enough for pretty much 90%.
So you have an
screening.
ultrasound?
Yeah, ultrasound. We have shockwave therapy, which can be used for sports injuries as well as even in some sexual conditions like erectile dysfunction. Equipment like that, you know, ECGs
Okay.
and stuff like that.
Okay.
Everything we put into the clinic, we would have to test on ourselves. Our rule of thumb is we don't do anything in there that we wouldn't do on ourselves.
Okay.
As owners of the business, which is why we limit some of the therapies because we don't think they're ready for prime time.
Okay. So something like an NAD plus or...
No, that's fine.
Okay.
You know, like, I mean, like, for example, in Singapore, I think our clinic is going to have a VO2 max machine, which is on its way, because increasingly a lot of our patients are into optimization as they get older. So you need to start measuring these things. We'll do some point of care testing in the clinic, so you'll be able to get an instant result on an STD screen, for example, right? So that's something we're rolling out. So
Okay.
whatever makes the patient's life better that we would do on ourselves is how we think about it.
Yeah, because some of the things that I've, you know, like that I've been hearing in terms of longevity would be NAD plus, NMN, stem cells.
Yeah. Well, testosterone, I guess.
Yeah, testosterone. I wanted to ask you about testosterone because I've heard mixed things about it. One, I've heard obviously it makes you feel great when you take a testosterone shot. You know, whether I've seen guys who've been on it for the last few weeks and they look good, they look strong, they look young, you know, they look vital. But I've also heard that once you start taking it, if you stop taking it, your body can really just kind of deplete. Is there anything to that?
I think it's depends on the approach.
Okay.
So our approach, my personal belief, because again, I'm at the age where I have to start doing these things myself, right?
And how old are you, by the way?
52.
52.
Yeah, and I want to be like this when I'm 80.
Yeah.
Right? That's my goal.
Right.
So I think you have to take a step back and say, what is your long-term healthcare goal?
Right.
Right. For me, it is I want to function at 80 the way I function now, which is both mentally, I'm still productive, and I can still work out, and I'm still functional. I can lift a bag into an overhead compartment. You know, I can still toss a ball with my son. Okay, he's now getting a bit stronger than me in the gym. I can just about take him, but not for long.
How old is he?
12.
Whoa.
But he goes to Singapore Sports School, right?
Okay.
So he's an athlete, trains 3.5 hours a day. So I want to be able to do this for a long time. So then all of my healthcare is how do I continue doing this for 30 years, right? And that's my goal. So the way I think about nutrition, does it help me get there? The way I think about exercise to help me get there. So testosterone is the same. So I think there's a lot of misconceptions around it. One is there's a right level of testosterone. Actually, we have ranges for things, okay? And you don't just treat the number, you treat the patient. Okay, so what a lot of mistakes get made is, you're right, if I need to maintain that function, can I stop and then maintain that level?
Right.
But actually, it's not just the level, it is, have I changed your behavior? And how do you feel with that number? So what is an acceptable testosterone level for me may not be the same for you.
Right.
Because I will have different needs and different symptoms. The way I understand testosterone, I can't remember who described this, but I think it's a great way to describe it is, it's kind of like it makes you a better version of yourself. And it exaggerates you. So if you are aggressive, you will become more aggressive. If you are very active, it will keep you active. If you're kind, actually it can exacerbate kindness too. Right? It makes you almost like an enhanced version of who you actually are.
So it's basically power.
Yeah. So it's great if the testosterone enables me to still work out and still have the same thing. It is not great if the testosterone makes you lazy, because there are other benefits to working out besides muscles, right? So I think once you view it in that context, can you maintain the effect by tapering? Yeah, you can. There are other ways. There are also naturally occurring forms of this. There's some data even around Tongkat Ali, right?
Yes.
It's not like there's no data, right?
No, yeah,
It's
yeah.
actually-
That's supposed to be very good, Tongkat Ali.
So, it is, can I maintain the function, right? Now, the injectable, yes, you have to take it, right? And it's a long-term kind of commitment. But do you need the same level when you're 80 as you do when you're 50? Well, that's debatable. How are you functioning, right? Are you functioning well? And then let's have a view. It's a long answer to your question, I know, but I think people miss that.
Okay, I'm gonna just come back at you with another one, because the other thing I've heard about testosterone is that it also increases the likelihood of prostate cancer. However, the fact that you're taking it, you actively can monitor your prostate closer, so you would know that if anything is happening, and the prostate cancer can be caught quickly if it is that. It's just something that
actually, it doesn't necessarily increase your risk. It means that if you already have it, it can make it worse. That's the way to think about it. It's a bit debatable as to whether it actually increases the risk or not.
Okay.
But we do know that if you have it, it can actually exacerbate it. I'd say, it's self-selective, because the men who are usually watching their testosterone generally are the people who are a bit more paranoid about their health and are monitoring themselves anyway.
Right.
Yeah, so I'd say, testosterone is not one of those things that can be managed remotely. It's not like I can just manage your blood level. I need to see you as a whole person.
Right.
And this needs to be part of a holistic thing. There's no sense just taking the testosterone and then ignoring your workouts, or not living your other parts of your life. Do you cut out alcohol? Do you reduce it? Do you smoke? All these things are holistic. Again, it boils down to, how do I want to be when I'm 80? That's what you should be thinking of now at 50.
How often do you think people should get a full checkup and be monitoring their body? Like, what's the
I think
ideal?
baseline once a year, but I would say that it is more important that it's personalized to you. So one of the things we do in our men's health thing, we don't have like standard panels, right? We have kind of like different kind of baselines, and then we tweak it according to who you are as a person.
Okay.
So once it's kind of hyper-personalized to you, I'd say once a year, it's good. If it's just like gold, silver, bronze, then I'll debate that, right? Because then you're just saying everyone is the same. Everyone is not the same.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, that happens to me, like the obesity thing. I always, because I'm like, I don't know, I'm a bigger guy.
Yeah.
I always come into, you might be obese.
Yeah.
And I'm not obese.
No,
I might
you're
be
not.
at 20% fat, but there's 44% muscle.
Yeah.
So I see what you're saying. Not everybody is the same.
It's
personalized healthcare. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
future, right?
Yeah, and that you're just titrating it to how you want to function, right? And that's the key, right?
Yeah.
Like, how are you functioning?
So when you get patients coming in, I don't even know if you want to call them patients, because I feel like you're a patient when you're sick.
Yeah.
But when you're going for preventative health care, you're not a patient. You're going in for more maintenance. Right?
Yeah.
So how do you refer to them as patients, or do you refer to them as clients?
A bit of both.
Okay.
And I think you can be both simultaneously, is
Right.
the answer to that. It's kind of funny. Like, the longer you spend talking to a patient, the more you find that actually there's stuff going on there that they didn't think about. They didn't think was an issue till you start talking about it.
Right.
So sometimes you can be both patient and in for optimization. You just don't know it yet.
Is there anything that you guys are doing for mental health, for men's mental health? Because I think that's also something that's kind of a priority, particularly in Asia.
Yeah.
A lot of men just try to man it out. They don't really talk about these things. Even men's health in general. So is there an educational process to try to get these guys in and say, hey, look, guys, you don't have to sit there and be in pain, or tough it out, or whatever. Just come in and let's work this out.
I think That's actually an excellent question, and it's more profound in a way. Men's health is complicated. You know, we're taught that men are easy because we don't give birth. Actually, that's not true. It's actually a profound feat of engineering, right? And everything is linked. That's the other thing. So I think men are becoming more aware that they need to kind of talk about things. So in Singapore, for example, we tied up with a psychologist. So you can actually come into our clinic and get a psychological counseling, etc. So she sees the patients in our clinic whenever there's a need. She's not full-time, but it's there. They can also do remote through our clinic app as well for psychology. But the real education is to educate patients or members or men in general that things are linked. So a good example is, as you say, depression. Now, men actually, I forget the statistic, I think it's 3 or 4 times more likely to commit suicide after a divorce than women.
Wow.
Which is huge. See, men have different mental health needs at different points in their life.
In 2023, males make up to 50 to 80% of the suicide rate.
Okay, well,
See,
so
it's
clearly more, yes.
A lot more. So now if you come into my clinic and you tell me that, hey, I just got divorced. But, you know, I'm not feeling so great, you know. The physical and the mental go together. And it's very hard sometimes to just disentangle it. So I'll give you another example. You could be simultaneously divorced, which is very common, and going through andropause. Now you got 2 problems, right? One is you're socially isolating, you're stressed because you can't see your kids or whatever. And at the same time, the hormones in your body are causing you to be more depressed. At the same time, your work performance, which is linked to andropause too, because as you go down, your performance is less, you're less active at work, it creates mental fog, even andropause. The effects are profound, right? To what extent is that mental health thing now the divorce versus just andropause?
Wow.
Which is my point, right? Like, so you need something more holistic rather than just chalking it down to, I feel low because I got divorced. That's not necessarily true, right? Now, if we're only sending you somewhere else for psychology, and it's somewhere else to get testosterone, nobody's putting it all together,
Right.
we have a problem.
Right. You have to look at it from a holistic view.
You have to do, because men are complicated, right? And it's time we stop saying that men are easy. It's not. Our job isn't done the moment the baby is born.
Yeah.
Like, that's not it, right?
No, we're providers.
Yeah.
Humans are complicated in general, male or female, I think.
Yeah.
Both are. And men, you know, speaking man to man, obviously we know that we have our own set of issues that women don't know about.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on DNA analysis, microbiome analysis? Is that anything that you guys are delving into?
So we partner with that.
Okay.
I mean, I think the gut microbiome and its role now, I think that's established.
Yeah.
We do know now that 1 to 4 servings of things a day that influence gut health and gut microbiome is a good thing, whether it's kimchi, low sugar, kombucha, or whatever your poison is. Do it. In my house, we do the low sugar kombucha thing. We brew it.
Oh, really?
I think that's probably the right way to look at it. So I think it's well established, and I think the science around testing around that, I think it's a good thing. We partner to do those kind of things. DNA is an interesting one. I think, again, I think the challenge is always going to be, so what? See, I think a lot of healthcare actually is answering the so what. I have this, so what? Do I change my life? Do I worry about it? Are there ramifications with my life insurance policy? Or my health premiums going to go up?
Right.
So a lot of times, you know, our role is to educate patients as to the downstream effects of what they're trying to measure. And then say, do you really want to measure this? Just because you can measure it doesn't mean you should, right?
Yeah.
So again, it's what's right for you. How do you want to function? What is important to you?
Right. Now, the reason the microbiome thing, I bring that up is because I found that myself and witnessing other people, whenever you're going through a super stressful time, or even like there's a major tragedy that happens and you're feeling maybe depressed, you always lose your appetite.
Yes.
Right. And that somehow affects your microbiome.
It does.
Right. And that has to do with mental clarity. And it could also, preventive ways to do that could be working out.
Yeah.
Do you guys do anything with, workout programs, diet programs? What
Yeah.
about sauna, cold plunge? What are your thoughts on that stuff?
Yeah, so we actually in our clinic in Singapore actually prescribe exercise.
Okay.
So actually, our lead doctor Julian actually has a qualification to do that.
Okay.
Because it's like food as a medicine.
Yeah.
Exercise is a medicine too.
I agree.
Because obviously there's a lot of benefit to it, right?
Mhm.
I mean, a lot of it now, I think the evidence is quite clear around things like exercise, what seems to work best. And actually, I do it myself, so I'm happy to kind of, be the proponent for it, which is, cardio 3 times a week, 40 minutes of kind of aerobic, 45 minutes of aerobic that you can barely maintain a conversation, half an hour where you really can't maintain any conversation at all, and then 20 minutes of like 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off where you really definitely cannot. Right?
Oh, hit exercises.
And that kind of works in most scenarios. Complex exercises, then you do 3 times a week, which is upper body, lower body, core. But emphasize, the evidence is actually very interesting around complex exercise, right? So if you are jumping up onto a box, jumping down, that involves complex behavior, right? Your brain is involved, your muscles are involved. And that brain-muscle connectivity is something where the data is interesting.
Yeah. I've heard something about that with tennis and golf.
Correct.
Because of the hand-eye coordination.
Correct. So as you age, actually you should be doing more complex stuff that maintains that brain muscle connection. So in fact, one of the tests for Alzheimer's actually, it is that, it's measuring around the distal muscles.
Okay.
Distal meaning away from center.
Right.
So actually that's something that a lot of people neglect. But I think it's important, right? Pickleball is actually quite good for that.
Okay.
Right? Like as you get older, because it's complex, you're moving and it's equivalent to jumping onto a box. So I do think doing that once or twice a week is useful. So again, it's all about how you want to function.
Right.
Like for me, I need to be able to like not be reliant on other people physically as I get older. So I exercise for that. I also think vanity is a good motivator. I want to look like this when I'm 80. I still want to have a V shape.
Yeah.
I don't really care about my own body fat index. I don't measure it. Because to me, 15%, 16% doesn't rock my boat, right? Like I'm not motivated by that. But some people are, and fair play. If your goal is to do triathlons in the 70s, then you need the program now that gets you there. It's not my goal. But it's perfectly legitimate if it is yours.
Is there an age you think men need to start looking into this? I mean, I know probably the sooner the better, but is there an age where is there an ideal age, do you think, or should it be from the beginning?
Start young. I mean, and I live this philosophy. My son, we've raised him to do sports since he was 3.
Sure.
Okay, he goes to Singapore Sports School now, so he wants to go to Olympics and fence, right? Like so, he trains 3.5 hours a day. He goes to a school that enables him to do that, because I think the younger the better. Because I think, especially in an age of, and this has got nothing to do with healthcare actually. It's got to do more with career. In an age when AI and machine learning is kind of going to make a lot of jobs different. I wouldn't say obsolete, different. And the careers haven't been invented yet. The thing you can do to teach your kids the right way is to teach them how to adapt.
Yeah.
And to be resilient and to tell stories, which are all the things that you get with sports, right? He does fencing, he has a plan, then as Mike Tyson says, he'll tell you this as well. I get hit in the head, now I have to change my plan within 2 seconds, right? That's a sport, right? So younger the better, I'd say, because you want to get into a habit. I think the issue, and this is something I don't think we've spent enough time on, don't get injured.
Right.
That's it.
Especially as you get older.
Don't get injured, because injury means you stop working out, then it's hard to get back into a routine, then you feel demotivated.
Yeah.
So don't kill yourself in the gym.
Right.
Like do that thing I said, like 30 minutes, 40 minutes. You don't have to do personal best at every session. Also be aware that once you try new forms of exercise, and I'm all for it, by the way, trying new forms, because sometimes it's a bit repetitive, but just be aware that the first or second time you're doing this, your risk of injury just went up 100%.
Okay.
that's when people get injured. They go and try tennis for the first time, and they get injured.
Right.
My wife had a pickleball injury the first time. Why? Because she didn't warm up properly, because she thought, well, this looks easy. But actually it's not. And you need just to be conscious that I'm doing this for the first time, go easy, don't get injured.
Yeah, you're using different muscles that you're not accustomed to using.
Yeah, just don't get injured. Like that, I think, is the biggest thing I can say, right? You go skiing, just be aware.
Yeah.
Great, good on you. You get injured, you're out for 3 months.
Yeah.
So you want to take the risk, but
I want to add something. I want to build on something you just said about kids and playing sports. The other thing that's really important is the social aspect, right?
Yes.
Especially with computers and social media.
yes.
You're actually building team skills, how to work together with a team, how to interact with other people. Even if it's an individual sport, there's still other people
Yes.
that are training in your same category, and you get to interact with them and talk and have real person-to-person interactions, right? And camaraderie.
Absolutely.
I mean, in my life, a lot of my good friends that I've met have been through sport.
Yeah,
You know, that's just a
likewise.
way, especially for men, that's a great way to interact.
It is. And men actually are a bit different to women in that respect, I think, which is kind of like, sports is a bit like a love language for men. I don't know how to a better way to communicate. It's like how we communicate sometimes, right? And it's how we bond. I'm like you, a lot of my friends, I played hockey with since we were 18. Like, you know, I'm godfather to his kids, he's godfather of mine, right? Like we were teammates in 18, right?
We challenge each other.
We challenge each other, we're still there.
Yeah.
So I do think for men, I think as a form of socialization, because I think one thing men don't realize as they get older is the social aspect actually becomes a lot more important.
Right.
Again, suicide rates very different for older men than older women, especially around life-changing events, like, you know, your wife dying.
Yeah.
Right?
The other thing for men that, you know, we were meant to do hard things, work out, right? And when you get stuck in this sterile environment of an office environment or something where you're not being challenged, you're not able to use these inner instincts that you've had for hundreds of thousands of years, right? You need an outlet for that.
Yes.
And it should most likely be a physical outlet, right?
It should.
Some type of sport, working out.
No, we came from cavemen.
Right.
Right? Cavemen move during the day, right? So, you know what? Move during the day. It's just how you were designed.
Yeah.
We're not designed to be nocturnal. So, hence, don't get light sources at night. Like, it's not rocket science. Don't wake up at 2 a.m. and look at the screen, right? We're not designed to do that. You know, as soon as you wake up, get outside. You know, trigger, whether you believe it's the RAS system or whatever you believe, it does work.
Oh, and
right?
get some vitamin D.
It's how we were designed. We were designed to move. We were designed to move during the day. We were designed to be outside and to get sunlight.
Yeah.
You know, we're not designed to be nocturnal or do any other things. Same around food, right? Why is it that eating whole foods, you know, seems to have an effect on weight, etc.? Why? Because we're designed that way. Our brain can tell our body that we are full when it comes to whole foods. We can't do that with processed foods because our brain hasn't computed yet. God, am I full? Am I not full? Am I getting enough of everything or not? This is like a million years of evolution, right?
Yeah.
Like you're not going to change it overnight, right?
Yeah, I know we don't have a lot of time,
Yeah, yeah.
but I mean, you say something like that, and it just reminds me. I have to say,
Yeah.
it reminds me. You know, the tobacco industry was just trying to get people addicted to cigarettes for years and years, and
Yeah.
doctors and the lobby were going. And what happened? The tobacco industry got regulated in the 90s. So Nabisco, I think it was, bought out by RJR Reynolds.
Yeah.
They brought all those scientists over to the food division to focus on preservatives and how to eat and how to make foods more addictive and less filling. And this is exactly what you're talking about. And it's unfortunate, but it's a symptom of capitalism, essentially.
Yeah.
And I'm a capitalist. But
Yeah.
but when it comes to nutrition and healthcare, I think there should be some sort of, you know, regulations.
They should. But also look, as again, I want to remind people that they are consumers. We're consumers of healthcare, we're consumers of consumer products. It can get, the science, I know, you can geek out on it and it can seem complicated, but actually it's surprisingly simple.
Yeah.
Eat food that looks like the way it
Right.
was originally came out of the ground or hunted, right? You just take the way it was came out,
Yeah.
right? Like you don't, if it looks like something indistinguishable from when it first came out of the ground or got hunted, then try to. I'm not saying don't eat it. By the way, this morning I definitely ate processed food. Right, I'm in town. I ate roti jala because in Singapore I can't find it, and I ate the sweet pulut. But I'm gonna balance it. At lunch, I'm gonna just eat it, a salad. That's all. Like just like balance it. Don't cut it out entirely. Because look, we should feel good. Carbs are good too.
And we should be free to make our own choices.
Yes.
I get it. Like,
but put warning labels,
Right.
and by all means educate. I totally 100% agree with
Yeah.
you. There should be a warning label on processed food. It just says, okay, you look, eat this, but then go eat a salad or something like that, right? Like it's okay.
Right. It's okay to have once in a while,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
not every day, all
Yeah.
day.
The good thing is, I think the kids are better educated. Like at least my son knew
nowadays.
an awful lot about nutrition, even at like 5 or 6, right? Like he knows, right? So I think that's good. And that's where the government can step in a bit more.
Well, it starts with the parents,
Yeah.
but the kids now, they have so much access to information
They
that we
know
didn't
more.
have growing up.
Yeah, they
It's-
know
it's-
more, and I think that's why I think diets will change.
Yeah, I agree. We didn't mention the name of your clinics.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, it's called Hisential. We have one in Bangsar Shopping Center. So we have a website, we have an app that basically, it's a bit of a super app. You can kind of do everything, order your medication online, get consults. We opened at Mandarin Gallery in Singapore as well. And then our face and hair products are on Hisential.com, which is a shop.
And that's
right?
Hisential?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, our moisturizers in particular very popular. Which is a whole different thing, right, around how you age and SPF.
Well, the skin is an organ now. We've
Yeah.
discovered, right?
Data's very good around. Okay, look, it's very simple. You want to get good skin, hydrate and SPF.
Yeah.
I've been doing this for like 30 years. Right? Okay, I'm not saying I'm a male model, but I look okay for 52. So I think it seems to be working. So yeah, I mean, you can come check us out, and yeah.
Great. Thanks, man.
Buddy,
I know you're running short on time, but this is a great conversation. I'm
Pleasure.
glad. I'd love to have
Anytime.
you back another time.
Yeah, happy to talk
Thanks a
about
lot,
it.
Romesh.
Good to see you.
Really appreciate it.